be strong. We will get updated information about that overnight tonight, and Amber will have that for you in the morning.
All righty, Jeff, thank you, and thank you, Trevor. We'll be back tomorrow. Y'all have a great rest of your evening. Morning crew will be here at 4:30. See you tomorrow.
LawCall is provided in the public interest by Timberlake, League & Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to this station.
This is WAAY 31 LawCall.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 LawCall. I'm Sharon. Doviet tonight. It's an Ask Us Anything night. Timberlake, League & Brooks are here to answer your questions on everything from car accidents to medical malpractice. We can handle questions about child support. If you've got a loved one that's in a nursing home and you're worried about their care, call in and ask. You can be live on the air, 256-536-0077. Be live with us or text us to that same number and we'll be getting some of your text questions in. And you can always send any legal question any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out. We've got some of your email questions tonight, and we've got Heath Brooks and William Messervy from Timberlake, League & Brooks. Good to have you guys here tonight.
Glad to be here.
Fun to answer questions. I can't believe the show's been on for 30 years. Not necessarily always us, but we've heard just about everything, so we look forward to seeing what you've got for us tonight. We wanted to start off tonight with the You Make the Law Call clip. We haven't had that in a couple of weeks. It's a pretty common occurrence for these rear end accidents. We've got a couple of different ones. So this is one, daytime, obviously somebody runs into the back of you. But in the next one, so different time of the day, and it's not necessarily that the car you're seeing runs into them, they get stopped just fine. And then apparently somebody runs into them. So you've always heard that if you hit somebody else, it's going to be your fault, right? But what if somebody causes you to do that? When you look at these kind of things, what do you see?
You know, here's the first one. The first one is you've got to anticipate somebody. It looks like they stopped quickly. Looks like another car stopped in front of them and they caused them to stop quickly. You've got to anticipate those kinds of things when you're driving on an Alabama roadway. Okay. You've got to anticipate that a quick stop's going to be made so that you keep a safe stopping distance so that you have enough time to be able to safely stop yourself. You know, sometimes when we do, so I think it's probably going to be on the car that hit the truck in the first video. Okay. But sometimes, you know, when we are able to stop, we get hit like the second video. What happens then?
Yeah, you know, the insurance company's #1 question to the vehicle in the front is going to be, did you feel one impact or two, right? Because they're going to want to know, was it the car directly behind you or was it the car that struck that car? Because both those things happen where one vehicle strikes a vehicle and then the collision causes someone else to rear end, right? And then you can have it where, you know, they, like in the video, they both come to a stop and then he gets rear-ended and pushed into the car in front of him. So in Alabama, like Heath was saying, you know, you have a duty to keep proper lookout. You have a duty to not follow too closely. And I can't tell you how many times in our office, you know, we're bringing claims for people who are following too closely.
That's right. You know, one of the things about Alabama, we have an interesting type of law. It's called combined and concurring negligence. And what that means, that's a fancy legal term for multiple people can be at fault for the same wreck. Okay. So if I am able to stop and somebody runs into the back of me and then I run into the back of somebody else, then I may be responsible for hitting the person I run into, and the person behind me who hit me may be responsible for my injuries and partially responsible for the person they pushed me into. And in Alabama, we have something else where everybody can be responsible for the same wreck to the same amount of damage. So let's say you get hit by a commercial vehicle that has a whole bunch of insurance coverage, maybe a whole bunch of assets, and then the other person involved has nothing, has no insurance. Even if that commercial vehicle is less responsible, they can be responsible for the entirety of the award. So it's important to know how that law works together in the state of Alabama. It can be pretty complicated.
We've got callers waiting. We've got Rebecca on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, I'd like to know how I can get my grandparents' rights.
Okay, grandparents' rights. Okay, so I do family law, and grandparents' rights seem to change about every legislative session. It's something that's very popular among older voters. They're always interested in grandparents' rights, and legislators like to attract those votes. So they're oftentimes writing and rewriting the law. So in Alabama, if you are a grandparent and something has happened to your own child so that they are no longer in the picture, they can't allow you to participate in being part of that child's life, you could potentially bring something for grandparents' visitation. If your own child, though, is the one that is preventing you from having that contact, you're not going to be able to go after that. So if your child is alive and they've decided they don't want you to be part of your grandchildren's lives, in Alabama, they've got that right to make that decision. So you probably need to meet with a family law attorney and talk through what the steps are, what the missing links are, if there are some, to see whether you've got a right and to see whether the legislature changed it again.
Now, what happens, Sharon, if DHR gets involved in some of those situations? Say a parent has a drug problem or something.
Yeah.
And DHR needs to remove that child.
Yeah.
What happens in that instance with grandparents?
So that's different from grandparents' rights. That's a case where you've actually got parents that are not doing what they're supposed to and they're unfit, and DHR may be looking for somebody that can step in. They may be looking to the grandparents or potentially other people. If they can get those parents back in line again, like DHR is going to offer them services, they're going to offer them drug rehab, they're going to do testing, they're going to do all kinds of parenting classes and offer things for them for free. And if they can get those parents back in line, the parents will get the children returned to them, probably.
So when we talk grandparents' rights and what the legislature is doing, that's just simply, like you said, visitation.
Visitation, to have whatever the judge might award you. Might be a little time, one weekend a month. It's very dependent on what the judge in the case sees as appropriate and what kind of relationship you've had in the past. Yeah, it's visitation, it's not custody.
Well, basically, a grandparent is not, if the parents don't want the grandparents to see the child and the parents are still capable and alive, then the grandparents don't have any rights.
Yeah, pretty much, because the court considers parents to make the best decisions for their children, even if you don't agree with it. And so they're not going to step in and decide in place of a parent. They're not going to make that decision for you, unfortunately.
Oh, I see. Well, we do have a text message.
Tough situation.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
We've got a text. It says, I'm being sued for $2,400 in small claims court. I'm on disability and am having a hard time making ends meet. I don't have any property that is valuable. Can they take my car, or should I file bankruptcy to prevent them from being able to do that?
What do you guys think? Small claims court. So it's not a huge amount of money, but it's a lot to this person.
$2,400 can mean everything.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's if you don't have that kind of money, then you are technically bankrupt. But filing bankruptcy also has its own issues, you know, and it can be expensive. You can file Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which basically means it's a consolidation of all your debt, and then you pay a monthly amount that your creditors accept until your debt's paid off, or a Chapter 7, which basically means you liquidate everything and have to give everything back, and then you start out new. And there's some exceptions to what you have to give back. But if you do have a $2,400 judgment against you, bankruptcy, Chapter 13 may protect you if you're able to make those payments. But if you're not able to make those payments, then Chapter 13 bankruptcy may not help you. What I'll always suggest in that kind of scenario is sit down with your creditor. Don't just pretend like it doesn't exist. Call the lawyer that's representing the company that's suing you or the person that is asking for the money, and see if you can work out a payment plan, because oftentimes going in front of a judge, getting a judgment against you, puts you in a worse position whether you decide to file bankruptcy or not. Try to get it worked out. Most of the time people will be reasonable with you, I find.
And that's in part because there can be post-judgment interest.
That's right, yeah.
But of note is that Social Security disability cannot be garnished, and at least not by a private creditor. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, with the exception of maybe her automobile, she's essentially judgment proof.
That's pretty much right. Yeah.
You know, so any lawyer that would be being honest with you would tell you they've got a drawer full of judgments that if they could collect, they could retire. And oftentimes collecting the judgment is much more difficult than getting the judgment. You know, so like Heath said, it's worth sitting down and talking with them about. But at the same time, you know, depending on the value of that automobile, they're not going to come garnish your Social Security disability.
No, they're not going to be able to do that.
We've got Chris on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Chris. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My question is regarding wrongful termination. if a person was in the hospital and they received an email that was backdated prior to their release, although they may have been on probation and it's in an at-will state, will they still be able to have legal action to take to that particular employment because they fired them while they were in the hospital?
Okay, let's see if you guys can help with that. Wrongful termination.
So Alabama's an at-will employment state, and that basically means you can be terminated for good reason, bad reason, or no reason. You can't be fired for one of your constitutionally protected reasons, and the EEOC helps enforce those things, for the color of your skin or for your religion or even for certain disabilities. Alabama adds a few things that you can't be terminated for, one including being injured on the job. Now, they can still fire you for any other reason. They just can't say this was because you were injured on the job. But aside from those constitutionally protected reasons and those couple of carve-outs that the state of Alabama have made, unless you had a contract of an employment, a written agreement or something like that that would be enforceable, you're essentially an at-will employee.
That's right. I mean, you can't be fired if there's a contract and you got a contractual agreement with your employer, and the contract states when and how you can be fired. Then of course the contract's going to be what's going to be looked at. Or if you're a state employee, like a school teacher, you got to go through some due process kinds of situations in that scenario, which would afford you some better opportunity. But I mean, your employer in an at-will state can fire you because they don't like your hair color.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing you can do. It's really a sad state of things. But if the individual was in the hospital, having been hurt on the job, then they couldn't be fired solely for getting hurt on the job and filing a workers' compensation claim, or if they were disabled, or something along those lines, or one of those federally protected classes like William said.
Yeah, and union employees also oftentimes are protected from just simply being terminated. However, many times if you have the requisite amount of hours, which is typically that you've worked in a place for a year, you're eligible for what's called FMLA, or Family and Medical Leave Act. And under the Family and Medical Leave Act, your employer is required to protect your job position. Now, you don't get paid for the time that you're sick or in the hospital, but they will protect your job and leave that open for you when you come back. And you qualify typically for a certain set of weeks, sometimes months, that the employer would have to protect that job under the FMLA.
That's right.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're getting some of your text questions in about DUI. Let's see what that is. We'll be right back.
Timberlake, League and Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to this station.
You're watching Way 31 Law Call, the Tennessee Valley's only live legal call-in show for 30 years and counting. Presented by the award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm Timberlake, League and Brooks, featuring the knowledge and experience of attorney Michael Timberlake, attorney Will League, attorney Heath Brooks, attorney William Messervy, attorney Bobby Marsh, and hosted by family law attorney Sharon Doviet. Your rights, your calls, live. This is Way 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. We've got Heath Brooks and William Messervy with us here. Did you go to Porch Fest? Porch Fest in Huntsville was fantastic.
Yeah.
And we actually had our very own talented Heath Brooks performing. Your group is Brooks and Overdone?
Brooks and Overdone.
You
that's
sound
right.
great.
Thanks. I appreciate
Listen
that.
in.
It used to be that view on the mountaintop. They're just a picking it up.
You're fantastic. And you guys write your own songs. This is you. Who is part of Brooks and Overdone?
That's my father-in-law, Peter Miller.
How long y'all been playing together?
We have been playing together probably about 10 years, 15 years now. He's a classically trained guitar player that taught classical guitar
Wow.
on the collegiate level for about 12 years.
Wow.
So he's the overdone.
He's overdone. He's overdone.
It was fantastic. It was
Thank
really,
you.
how many, a lot of stages too.
A lot of stages. Last year I think there was about 5,000 people at the event. I think I heard maybe a little more than that. But great event put on, every year. We were fortunate and lucky to be able to play.
It's a lot of fun.
A great response from the community. So, a lot of good stuff going on in Huntsville.
You're very talented. There's something else been going on in Huntsville too, that Timberlake, League and Brooks sponsors something. What's going on?
Broadway Theater League. We do this for all their shows. The one coming up is Water for Elephants, but we provide free wheelchair service for the disabled so that they can get to and from their seats.
Yes.
Yeah, we want everybody to be able to enjoy those events, and so we try to do our part for the community to make sure everybody can enjoy the Broadway Theater League. Is an absolutely fantastic organization. We're very fortunate to have that in Huntsville and put on world-class plays and whatnot. So we try to help out where we can.
It's a nice service. Okay, we've invited you to text in questions. We got a text about DUIs. Okay, what's the question?
Yeah. Can one be charged with a DUI while not actually driving? If I pull over to go to sleep while a little intoxicated with the key in the ignition as I sleep?
The simple answer to that question is yes, you can.
Okay.
And yes, you will be charged if that happens. You're presumed to be an operator of a vehicle if you're in the driver's seat with the key in the ignition and you are intoxicated, and the law is going to support that. That's been challenged in probably most every state in the union, including Alabama, and consistently courts have upheld that if you are in the driver's seat and the key's in the ignition, even if the key's not in the ignition, by the way.
Even if the key's not in the car.
It's one of those things, actually, and very rare that a police officer has jurisdiction on private property. But if you are in a Walmart parking lot asleep in your car with the key in the ignition, intoxicated, then a police officer has jurisdiction on that private property to charge you with a DUI.
Yeah.
And the car's not moving, and they didn't see the car move.
Car's not moving, and you're completely asleep.
One thing people oftentimes don't understand is that a DUI can take place in more than just an automobile.
Yeah.
It can take place in a golf cart. It can take place on a bicycle.
Horse.
Roller skates.
Yep.
If it's got wheels.
If it's got wheels.
Or if you're driving it.
Or you're operating on a public roadway, or even you can get in a lot of trouble that way. And that's a question we're routinely asked. Unfortunately, is one of those things. Is, well, look, I was asleep. I was trying to do the right thing.
Right.
I wasn't driving. I was just in the driver's seat, and I realized that I was too drunk to drive, so I started to go to sleep.
A number of years ago, infamously in Huntsville, someone got a DUI on a riding lawnmower.
Yeah.
Cutting grass.
That. Yeah.
So,
Sounds like a George Jones kind of story.
Be careful.
Maybe we should write a song about it.
We should write a song. Brooks and the Overdone's going to have a song about that. We got in this email question from Jonathan. Jonathan says, I was injured when a piece of heavy heavy machinery, fell off a truck on the highway and cracked my windshield. I got a number off the side and called the trucking company, but they said it wasn't their fault and they had no trucks on the road that day. I'm really mad. What should I do? Well, it looks like they were on the road that day. He got the number.
You know, that's something that we've had that exact scenario occur, not involving a piece of heavy equipment, but material that falls off of some of these big trucks, commercial vehicles, goes onto the highway, and then you got to do the investigation work at that point in time. So, you know, depending upon how severe your injuries are, depending upon what your losses are, then we have to go to work to figure out, okay, if you are a company, you got the name of the company, you got the DOT number, you got the information from the vehicle, how can we figure it out? Well, oftentimes we can file a lawsuit and we can get into what's called the discovery process. And that's just discovering what information we need to pursue a claim. And what you're going to find in that discovery process is if that big piece of equipment fell off, there's going to be repair records. Those pieces of equipment are expensive. Was there an insurance claim filed for that piece of equipment? Likely is going to happen. You can look at videos around the area to determine, did any videos pick it up? The other day, we were doing some investigative work on an accident and found an actual convenience store had a video of the accident we were working on. So we were able to look at that video and determine exactly what happened. Cameras are everywhere. I mean, we don't want to believe it, but they are.
And one of the best things you can do to protect yourself is get yourself a dash cam.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I had a client the other day, and you know, he's at a stoplight, and a big truck comes through the light, and the truck driver told the police officer, "No, sir, I had a green light." But luckily, my client had a dash cam, and on that dash cam, clear as day, he had the green light, and the truck driver had a red light.
Excellent.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, are they cheap? They're cheaper than they used to be, but you know, for a couple $100, you can get a good one. I think you can get them for even less than that now, and you know, protect yourself. Now, of note is that
could it go the other way?
That can be discoverable information.
Okay,
right.
so if you're
And
wrong.
If you're a wild driver, you know, it can cut against you as well. But, you know, for those of us who are out there trying to drive safe and, you know, just protect ourselves and protect our kids, it's a great investment and, you know, can take a lot of the guesswork out.
It can, you know, and one of the things that I was looking at today, I was actually on my way back from my daughter's soccer game today, and there was a car that was weaving in and out of the roadway, and she crossed into another lane, head on to another vehicle that missed them by, I mean, maybe a foot. And the other vehicle almost went into the ditch to avoid this car. And I was thinking, you know, just like what you were saying, you know, thank goodness no accident happened. But if that car had run into the ditch and the car that came over on the side of the road had kept going, no one would know what that car looked like, what happened, you know, so.
Gotcha. We had a caller that is too shy to go on camera, but they're asking how, to go on the phone, how do you petition to revoke guardianship? Okay, guardianship. Have you ever, your clients ever have to do guardianships, conservatorships?
Yeah.
Okay, if there's a problem with it, go to probate court, correct?
Well, it depends upon where the guardianship is issued and what type of guardianship you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a guardianship like most of the time we dealing with sometimes money, can be a conservatorship too, then that's something that the circuit court can appoint a guardian to handle a specific situation. The circuit court would have to be petitioned to appoint a different guardian. If the guardian is appointed through the probate court, then you do have to petition the probate court for a change of guardianship, and then you also have to present evidence, testimony potentially, information to the judge to determine whether or not the change in guardianship is appropriate and who a new guardian will be. Because if you revoke a guardianship and there's no one in place, you've got a problem there.
The judge is also going to want to know a good reason why this person's no longer fit to be guardian.
That's right, yeah.
You know, because the court's already made a determination that that person's fit. So something would have had to occur, and the judge is going to want to know about that.
That's right.
We'll take a quick break. Be right back answering your questions.
Timberlake, League and Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to this station.
If you haven't gotten your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Heath Brooks and William Messervy with Timberlake, League and Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon does family law, that's child custody, divorce, and the like. She can be reached 256-539-7337 or www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
Speaking of child custody, we've got another text message. When do I know it's worth it to revisit child support, taking into consideration promotions, cost of living, changes in child care costs, while ultimately trying to decide if it's worth it with legal fees?
Legal fees. You're going to get a filing fee for a modification. Madison County is about $450. Other counties a little bit less than that usually. If the calculation would change it by 10%, then the court would grant that change. But it's a good question. You want to run those numbers if you can ahead of time.